The desolate outpost stood as a skeletal reminder of civilization on the alien landscape, its metal structures corroded by years of red dust storms that swept across the barren planet. Outpost 7K, once a thriving research facility at the edge of Union territory, now resembled an abandoned graveyard of twisted metal and broken dreams. Ryan Cole guided his shuttle into a shaky landing, wincing at the scraping sound as the landing gear made contact with the cracked landing pad. The sound echoed across the emptiness, a stark reminder of how alone he was on this forsaken rock. He checked his oxygen readings before donning his helmet, the familiar hiss of air pressurization bringing a small comfort in this unfamiliar world. "Just get the parts and get out," he muttered to himself, the words fogging up his visor momentarily. 4 hours, tops. His boots crunched against the mixture of red sand and metal debris as he made his way toward the main compound. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the howling wind that seemed to whisper warnings through the abandoned corridors. Ryan's hand instinctively rested on his sidearm, a precaution he'd learned to take after years of scavenging in the outer reaches. The facility's doors had long since ceased functioning, their mechanisms jammed with fine red dust. Ryan forced his way through a partially collapsed entrance, the beam of his helmet light cutting through the darkness to reveal a once bustling command center. Consoles lay dormant, their screens shattered or dulled by years of disuse. This was the kind of place where good salvage could be found, where others feared to tread. Ryan methodically began his inventory, checking each potential component against his list. The cargo hold of his shuttle wasn't large, but if he could retrieve enough functional parts, particularly the rare quantum stabilizers used in these old Union outposts, he might finally have enough credits to afford that security deposit on a HAB unit back in the central systems. No more living hand-to-mouth, no more dangerous salvage runs. As he worked, prying loose a particularly valuable circuit board, a faint, crackling sound stopped him cold. He froze, listening intently as static intermittently broke through the silence. It was coming from an old emergency communications console in the corner, one he'd dismissed as dead upon his initial survey. Ryan approached cautiously, weapon now drawn. The console flickered weakly, its power reserves somehow not completely drained. The static continued, punctuated by what sounded like a voice. He adjusted the frequency dial, and suddenly, the static cleared enough to make out words, high-pitched, trembling words that sent a chill down his spine. "Please help. My mom is hurt." Ryan tapped the transmitter. "This is Ryan Cole, independent salvager. Who is this? Where are you transmitting from?" More static. Then, "Please help. We're in the lower levels. Mom won't wake up. Please." The voice was young, impossibly young to be in this abandoned outpost. Ryan checked his scanner for life forms, but the thick walls of the facility interfered with accurate readings. He hesitated, calculating the risk. This could be a trap. Pirates sometimes use distress calls to lure in unsuspecting salvagers. But something in the trembling voice, the desperation. "I'm coming," he found himself saying, surprised at his own decision. "Stay where you are. I'll find you." The silence that followed was punctuated only by a soft, "Thank you." Ryan quickly gathered his medical kit, standard issue for solo salvagers, though rarely used for anything beyond patching his own wounds. His original mission forgotten. He accessed the facility's offline schematics through his wrist computer and located the access route to the lower levels. The descent into the bowels of the outpost was like traveling into another world. While the upper levels showed the expected signs of abandonment and decay, the lower levels appeared more intact, as though someone had been maintaining them. Emergency lighting still functioned in patches, casting eerie blue shadows along the corridors. Ryan followed the faint energy signatures his scanner detected, leading him deeper into the complex. He finally reached a sealed door marked Residential Quarters, authorized personnel only. The security panel beside it flickered with remnants of power. "Hello," he called out. "I'm here to help. Can you open the door?" A small voice came from the other side. "The code is 7391. Please hurry." Ryan punched in the numbers, and the door slid open with a protesting groan. His helmet light illuminated a small living quarter, surprisingly well preserved compared to the rest of the facility. And there, in the center of the room, stood a child. Except she wasn't human. The girl, if girl was the right word, appeared to be around 8 years old in human terms. Her skin had a faint lavender hue, and her eyes were larger than human eyes, with irises that seemed to glow with an inner light. Small, iridescent scales lined her temples and disappeared into her hairline, where instead of hair, she had what looked like fine, silvery filaments that moved gently, as though suspended in water. Ryan had encountered non-humans before. The galaxy was full of diverse species, but he'd never seen anything quite like her. She was clutching what appeared to be a stuffed toy to her chest, her large eyes wide with fear and hope. "Are you Sia?" Ryan asked, remembering the name he'd heard over the transmission. The child nodded, taking a hesitant step forward. "You came," she whispered, as though she hadn't truly believed anyone would respond to her call. "I did," Ryan confirmed, holstering his weapon to appear less threatening. "Where's your mother?" Sia pointed to a doorway leading to an adjacent room. "She won't wake up. I tried everything. Please help her." Ryan approached the doorway cautiously, still half expecting an ambush. Instead, he found another alien lying on a bed, clearly injured. She resembled Sia, but was obviously an adult, with more pronounced scales along her temples and neck. A makeshift bandage was wrapped around her midsection, soaked through with a substance that glowed faintly blue. Blood, he realized. He knelt beside the bed, scanning her with his medical device. The readings were confusing. Her biology was unlike anything in his database, but the basics were clear enough. Severe blood loss, infection setting in, dangerously low vital signs. "What happened to her?" Ryan asked, already opening his medkit. Sia stood in the doorway, her filaments quivering. "Bad people came. They wanted our blood. Mom fought them off, but they hurt her before they left." Ryan's jaw tightened. Gene harvesting. It wasn't uncommon in the outer systems. Rare species were often hunted for their unique genetic material, which fetched high prices in black markets. If this species had valuable genetic traits. "How long has she been unconscious?" 2 sleep cycles, Sia replied, which could mean anything from 2 days to 2 weeks, depending on their biology. Ryan administered a broad-spectrum antibiotic and a universal coagulant, hoping they wouldn't have adverse effects on her alien physiology. He cleaned and redressed the wound properly, noting with concern how the blue substance seemed to glow brighter when exposed to air. "Your mom needs more advanced medical care than I can provide," he told Sia honestly. "Do you have anyone else? Any way to contact your people?" Sia shook her head, the movement causing her filaments to wave gently. "It's just us. We've been hiding. Mom says our people are gone." Gone. The word hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Refugees? Survivors of some catastrophe? Or worse, the last of their kind. A soft moan from the bed interrupted his thoughts. The alien woman's eyes fluttered open, eyes with the same inner luminescence as her daughter's, but a deeper shade, like twilight skies. She saw Ryan and immediately tried to sit up, reaching for something at her side. A weapon, no doubt. Her movement was accompanied by a grimace of pain, and Ryan raised his hands in a universal gesture of peace. "Easy," he said. "I'm not here to hurt you. Your daughter called for help." The woman's gaze darted to Sia, who rushed to her side. They exchanged words in a language Ryan didn't understand, flowing and musical, with clicks interspersed throughout. Finally, the woman turned back to Ryan, her expression guarded but no longer openly hostile. "You helped me," she said in accented but clear standard. Why? Because your daughter asked, Ryan replied simply. And because you needed it. She studied him for a long moment, as though trying to discern hidden motives in his features. Whatever she saw seemed to satisfy her, as she relaxed slightly against the pillow. I am Rilke, she said finally. You've met Sia. We are in your debt, human. Ryan, he corrected. Ryan Cole. And there's no debt. But you need better medical care than I can provide here. My shuttle's small, but it has a proper med bay. I can take you somewhere safer. Rilke's expression clouded. Nowhere is safe for us. Not anymore. Before Ryan could press for details, his scanner beeped an alert. Proximity warning. Something was approaching the outpost. Ryan moved quickly to the small viewport in the main room. In the distance, he could make out faint red dots moving across the landscape, drones. Their systematic search pattern was unmistakable. They're back, Sia whispered, having followed him to the window. The bad people. Ryan's mind raced. His shuttle was exposed on the landing pad. They'd know someone was here. And if they were looking specifically for Rilke and Sia. How many were there last time? He asked, already calculating odds. 6 humans, Rilke answered from the doorway, leaning heavily against the frame. She'd managed to stand, though clearly in pain. Mercenaries. They'll have more drones this time. Ryan nodded grimly. We need to move. Can you walk? Rilke straightened with visible effort. I will manage. No, Ryan decided. Too slow, and you'll reopen that wound. He moved to her side and, after a moment's hesitation, carefully lifted her into his arms. She was surprisingly light, her body temperature noticeably cooler than a human's. Sia, grab whatever you absolutely can't leave behind. 1 small bag only. We're heading to my shuttle. The child moved with surprising efficiency, quickly gathering a few items into a worn satchel. Within minutes, they were ready. Ryan checked his scanner again. The drones were circling wider now, but still approaching. They had maybe 20 minutes before detection became inevitable. There's a maintenance tunnel that leads directly to the landing pad, Rilke offered, pointing to a panel near the floor. It's how we've been avoiding detection. Ryan set her down gently and pried open the panel, revealing a narrow passageway. Perfect. Sia, you go first, then your mom, and I'll follow. The tunnel was cramped and dusty, forcing them to crawl rather than walk. Ryan supported Rilke as best he could, wincing each time she suppressed a sound of pain. Sia moved ahead confidently, clearly familiar with these hidden routes. They emerged through another panel near the landing pad, the red sun hanging low on the horizon. Ryan's shuttle sat where he'd left it, its hull already gathering a fine coating of the omnipresent red dust. Ryan scanned the area. No drones in visual range yet, but they're close. We need to move quickly. He carried Rilke across the open space, acutely aware of their vulnerability. Sia ran alongside, her movements graceful despite the urgency. They had almost reached the shuttle when the first drone appeared over a nearby ridge. Inside, now, Ryan commanded, punching his access code into the shuttle's hatch. The door slid open, and he practically threw Rilke inside, Sia scrambling in after her. The drone was moving in their direction now, its sensors undoubtedly detecting their heat signatures. Ryan dove into the pilot's seat and initiated emergency takeoff procedures, bypassing the usual safety checks. The engines roared to life, protesting the rough treatment. Strap in, he called back to his passengers as the shuttle lurched upward, just as the drone reached their position. A warning light flashed on his console. The drone had attached a tracker to their hull during the brief moment of contact. Damn it, Ryan muttered, engaging evasive maneuvers as they cleared the planet's atmosphere. He couldn't risk leading these mercenaries to any populated system, not with who he now carried on board. As the stars appeared around them, Ryan made a decision. He set course for the asteroid belt at the edge of the system, a treacherous navigation challenge, but an excellent place to lose a tail. Behind him, Sia had helped her mother to the small medbay and was now watching him with those luminous eyes. "Are they chasing us?" she asked, her voice small but steady. Ryan nodded, not seeing any reason to lie to her. "Yes, but we're going to lose them, I promise." Sia nodded solemnly, as though processing the weight of his promise. "Mom says you're different from the other humans." Ryan glanced at her, then back at his controls. "I'm just a salvager, kid." "No," Sia said with unexpected certainty. "You're our friend now." "Friend?" The word settled uncomfortably in Ryan's chest. He hadn't had friends, not real ones, since losing his crew 5 years ago. Attachment meant vulnerability, and vulnerability got people killed in the outer systems. Yet something about this strange child and her wounded mother had already breached defenses he'd thought impenetrable. "Let's focus on getting safe first," he said finally. "Then we can talk about friendship." The shuttle plunged into the asteroid belt, beginning a dangerous dance between massive rocks and space debris. Behind them, a larger ship had appeared on the long-range scanners, the mercenaries, no doubt following the tracker's signal. As Ryan navigated the treacherous field, he found himself hoping, for the first time in years, that he wouldn't have to face whatever was coming alone. In the medbay, Rilke drifted in and out of consciousness, her body fighting against the infection. The shuttle's medical system was running continuous diagnostics, attempting to synthesize medications compatible with her physiology. Sia sat beside her mother, holding her hand and singing softly in their native language. The melody was haunting, rising and falling like waves against a shore, occasionally punctuated by those distinctive clicking sounds. Ryan watched them from the doorway, a strange tightness in his chest. He'd been alone for so long that the simple sight of someone caring for another person felt almost foreign. "The medication seems to be helping," he said, checking the medbay's readouts. "Her temperature is stabilizing." Sia looked up at him, her filaments glowing faintly in the dimmed lighting. "Thank you for saving us." Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "I haven't saved anyone yet, kid. We're still being followed." "But you tried," Sia insisted. "That matters." Before Ryan could respond, an alarm blared from the cockpit. He rushed back to find that the pursuing ship had launched smaller craft, fighter drones, designed for close combat in tight spaces like asteroid fields. "Hold on!" he shouted, throwing the shuttle into a steep dive beneath a massive, slowly rotating asteroid. The maneuver bought them seconds at best. Ryan's mind raced. He couldn't outrun them forever, and fighting was out of the question. His shuttle had minimal defensive capabilities against proper combat drones. They needed somewhere to hide, somewhere to regroup. His eyes fell on the scanner, which showed a dense cluster of asteroids ahead, and among them, a faint energy signature, artificial, not natural. "Let's hope I'm right about this," he muttered, changing course directly toward the cluster. As they approached, the signature grew stronger. And there it was, an old mining operation, carved into one of the larger asteroids, abandoned, by the looks of it. But its hangar doors were partially open, just enough for a small craft like his shuttle. Ryan expertly maneuvered through the opening, cutting engines immediately once inside to minimize their signature. The hangar was dark and deserted, littered with abandoned equipment and the husks of mining vessels. "Everyone stay quiet," he whispered, moving to the rear of the shuttle where Rilke and Sia waited anxiously. "Those drones have audio sensors." They huddled in silence as the fighter drones passed outside, their scanning beams occasionally visible through the narrow hangar opening. Minutes stretched into an hour, and finally, the scanners showed the drones moving away, presumably to continue their search elsewhere. Ryan exhaled slowly. "We've bought some time, but they'll be back. I need to remove that tracker from our hull." "I can help," Sia offered immediately. Ryan shook his head. "It's too dangerous. The atmosphere in this hangar might be toxic. My kind can survive in environments that would kill humans. Rilke spoke up weakly from her bed. Sia can withstand vacuum for short periods. She can help you. Ryan looked between mother and daughter, noting their determination. All right, but we follow my instructions exactly. I'm not risking either of you. He helped Rilke to a more comfortable position, checking her wound again. The bleeding had stopped, and the infection seemed to be responding to the medication, but she was still weak. We'll be quick, he promised her. Try to rest. Outside the shuttle, the abandoned hangar was a graveyard of failed ambitions. The mining operation had clearly been shut down in a hurry. Equipment lay where it had been dropped, and personal effects were still scattered around workstations. Ryan located a functioning atmosphere scanner among the abandoned tools and confirmed what he'd suspected. The air was thin, but breathable, though cold enough to see his breath. He and Sia exited the shuttle, her small form moving with surprising agility in the low gravity. The tracker was embedded in the shuttle's hull, near the engine housing, a small, blinking device no larger than Ryan's thumb. I need to reach that, Ryan muttered. But it's in a tight spot. Sia studied the situation, then looked at him with determination. My hands are smaller. I can get it. Ryan hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. He lifted her up to the right height, and her slender fingers easily slipped into the narrow gap where his could not reach. Got it, she announced triumphantly moments later, holding up the tracking device. Good work, Ryan said, genuinely impressed. Now we need to... A sudden noise from deeper in the hangar cut him off. Both froze, listening intently. It came again, the unmistakable sound of a hatch opening. Back to the shuttle, Ryan whispered urgently. Now. But before they could move, a beam of light cut through the darkness, followed by another. Flashlights, moving methodically through the hangar. They're already here, Sia whispered, fear evident in her voice. Ryan pulled her behind a large piece of mining equipment, his mind racing. They couldn't reach the shuttle without being seen, and even if they could, taking off would alert every drone in the vicinity. Stay absolutely still, he instructed Sia, drawing his sidearm. No matter what happens. The beams of light drew closer, accompanied now by the sound of boots on metal flooring. Ryan counted at least 3 distinct footsteps, too many to take on directly, especially with Sia to protect. Search every corner, a gruff voice commanded. The tracker shows they're here somewhere. Ryan glanced down at the tracking device, still in Sia's hand, an idea forming. He took it gently from her, then pointed to a small maintenance duct in the wall behind them. Can you fit through there? He whispered. Sia nodded. Good. Here's what we're going to do. Minutes later, one of the mercenaries' communicators crackled to life. Movement detected in Sector 7, a mechanical voice reported. Tracker signal moving. That's on the other side of the asteroid, the leader growled. They're trying to escape through the emergency exits. All units converge there now. The footsteps receded quickly, the beams of light disappearing as the mercenaries rushed to intercept their quarry. Ryan waited until he was certain they were gone before emerging from hiding. Sia close behind him. The maintenance drone you activated should carry that tracker far enough to give us time, he told her. Let's get back to your mother. They hurried back to the shuttle, where Rilke was attempting to sit up, despite her weakness. What happened? She demanded, her luminous eyes wide with concern. We had visitors, Ryan explained, already moving to the cockpit. But they're chasing shadows now. We need to move while we have the chance. As he powered up the shuttle systems, keeping the energy signature as low as possible, Ryan considered their options. They couldn't stay in Union space, not with mercenaries hunting them. The frontier territories were lawless and dangerous. The central systems had too many eyes, too many scanners that might identify Rilke and Sia as valuable specimens. Where can we go? Sia asked, as though reading his thoughts. Ryan hesitated. There was one place, a small, overlooked moon called Alara, orbiting a gas giant in a system most considered worthless. He discovered it years ago and kept it as his personal emergency hideout. It had breathable atmosphere, vegetation, water, and most importantly, no human presence. "I know somewhere," he said finally, "but it's a long journey, and we'll need to avoid main travel routes." Rilke studied him from her bed, her expression unreadable. "Why are you helping us, human? What do you want in return?" The question caught Ryan off guard. What did he want? He'd abandoned his salvage mission, risked his life, and was now contemplating sharing his secret sanctuary with two aliens he'd just met. It defied all survival logic he'd lived by for years. "I don't know," he admitted honestly. "But I'm not leaving you to those mercenaries." Something shifted in Rilke's expression. A softening, perhaps, or the first glimmer of trust. "Then we accept your guidance," she said formally. "For now." Ryan nodded, turning back to his controls. As the shuttle slipped out of the hangar and into the asteroid field, he found himself wondering what exactly he'd gotten himself into, and why. For the first time in years, the thought of being responsible for others didn't terrify him. The journey to Alara would take weeks at best, navigating the forgotten routes between systems to avoid detection. It would be the longest time Ryan had spent in close quarters with anyone since losing his crew. As if sensing his thoughts, Sia appeared beside him in the cockpit, watching the stars with wonder in her luminous eyes. "Will you tell me about the stars?" she asked. "Mom knows some, but not like humans do." Ryan glanced at her, then back at the vast expanse before them. "Sure, kid," he found himself saying. "I can do that." And as they left the asteroid field behind, Ryan began to name the constellations, telling stories his own father had once told him. Stories he'd thought forgotten until this moment. The weeks aboard the shuttle passed in an unexpected rhythm of challenges and discoveries. Rilke recovered slowly but steadily, her alien physiology proving remarkably resilient once the infection was controlled. By the 10th day, she was able to move around the shuttle without assistance, though still weakened. Ryan learned more about his passengers during this time than he'd intended. They were Lyrians, a species nearly extinct after their homeworld was destroyed in a conflict between the Union and separatist forces. Rilke had been a resistance leader, fighting against Union genetic harvesting programs that treated her people as resources rather than sentient beings. "Our genetic structure adapts to environmental toxins," she explained one evening as they shared a meal in the shuttle's small common area. "It made us valuable to the Genetic Council. They wanted to use our blood to make better soldiers," Sia added, matter-of-factly, the simple statement chilling in its delivery from a child's lips. Ryan's jaw tightened. "And that's who's after you now? This Genetic Council?" Rilke shook her head. "The Council operates through proxies, mercenary groups like the Thorn Syndicate. They offer bounties for specimens without officially sanctioning the hunts." "Plausible deniability," Ryan muttered. It was a familiar tactic in the corrupt politics of the Union. "Precisely," Rilke agreed. "We've been running for 3 years. Outpost 7K was supposed to be abandoned enough to hide in while our ship was repaired." "What happened to your ship?" Ryan asked. Sia looked down at her plate. "The bad people found it first. That's why they came looking in the outpost. The pieces fell into place. The mercenaries had found their ship, realized its occupants must be nearby, and launched their first attack. Now they were determined to finish the job, either capturing Rilke and Sia for their valuable genetics, or ensuring no one else could. They won't find Alara," Ryan assured them. "It's not on any charts." Rilke studied him with those penetrating eyes. "And yet you found it." Ryan shrugged. "By accident. Engine malfunction forced me down. I was surprised to find it habitable." "A fortunate accident," Rilke observed. "We'll see," Ryan replied, not quite willing to call anything fortunate just yet. The close quarters of the shuttle forced a strange intimacy upon them. Ryan found himself learning the subtle nuances of Lyrian expressions, how Rilke's filaments would stiffen when she was anxious, or how Sia's scales would change hue slightly with her emotions. In turn, they adapted to human mannerisms with surprising quickness. Sia was endlessly curious, asking questions about Earth, human customs, and the mechanics of the shuttle. Ryan found himself answering with more patience than he'd known he possessed. There was something about her earnest fascination that made even the most mundane explanations feel important. Rilke was more reserved, but as her strength returned, she began to share her own knowledge, teaching Ryan phrases in the Lyrian language, explaining their customs, even demonstrating their unique ability to perceive energy patterns invisible to human eyes. "That's how we navigate in darkness," she explained, guiding his hand over a console whose power was turned off. "Every electronic device has a signature, even when dormant." By the third week, they had established routines that made the small space workable. Ryan taught Sia basic piloting skills, while Rilke contributed her knowledge of Union patrol patterns to help them avoid detection. The incident came on the 23rd day, as they were passing through a particularly dense nebula that Ryan had chosen specifically for its interference properties. It would mask their signature from long-range scanners. The proximity alert blared without warning. Something was approaching fast from their port side. "Patrol ship?" Rilke asked, immediately tensing. Ryan checked his scanners, frowning. "No, it's too small. Might be a scout drone." Before he could take evasive action, the object matched their speed and position. The scanner's identification finally processed. A magnetic mine, likely left over from some forgotten skirmish in this contested region. "Everyone strap in!" Ryan shouted, throwing the shuttle into a desperate evasive maneuver. Too late. The mine detonated close enough to send an electromagnetic pulse through their systems. The shuttle's engines sputtered and died, leaving them drifting in the purple haze of the nebula. Warning lights flashed across the console as backup systems engaged. Life support remained functional, but propulsion was completely offline. "Are we hit?" Rilke appeared in the cockpit doorway, Sia clutching her hand. "Not directly," Ryan answered, running diagnostics. "EMP fried our main engine circuits. We've got life support and minimal thrusters. But that's about it." "Can you fix it?" Sia asked, her filaments quivering with anxiety. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. "Maybe. But I'll need parts we don't have on board. We're going to drift until I figure something out." Rilke's expression hardened. "Drifting makes us vulnerable." "I know," Ryan agreed grimly. "But we're deep in the nebula. Should mask our signature for now." He spent the next hours attempting repairs, cannibalizing non-essential systems for parts. Rilke worked alongside him, her slender fingers proving adept at manipulating the delicate components. Sia watched them work, occasionally passing tools or holding a light. In quieter moments, she sang softly, those haunting Lyrian melodies that somehow made the dire situation more bearable. After nearly 12 hours of continuous work, Ryan sat back, wiping sweat from his brow. "It's no use. The main converter is completely fried, without a replacement. We're not going anywhere fast." "What options do we have?" Rilke asked. "Practical as always." Ryan considered their situation. "We can send a distress signal, but that would alert anyone looking for us. Or we can try to limp along on auxiliary power. But at that speed, it would take months to reach Alara." "There's a third option," Rilke said after a moment. "My people built redundancies into our technology. I might be able to adapt our neural interfaces to serve as temporary conduits for your ship's systems." Ryan frowned. "Neural interfaces? You mean connect yourselves to the ship? That sounds dangerous." "It is," Rilke admitted. "But Lyrian physiology is designed to channel energy. It's how we survived on a world with constant electrical storms." "No," Ryan said firmly. "It's too risky. We'll find another way." There might not be another way, Rilke countered, her filaments rippling with intensity. Every moment we drift increases the chance of detection. Their argument was interrupted by Sia's urgent voice. Someone's coming! Both adults rushed to the viewport. In the distance, barely visible through the nebula's haze, a ship was approaching, much larger than theirs, with the unmistakable silhouette of a Thorn Syndicate vessel. They found us, Ryan whispered. But how? Rilke's expression darkened. The mine, it wasn't random. It was a trap. These nebulas are common hiding places for fugitives. Ryan's mind raced. They couldn't run, couldn't fight, couldn't hide. Do it, he said suddenly, turning to Rilke. Your neural interface idea. If there's any chance it works. Rilke nodded grimly. I'll need tools and access to your main control circuits. What followed was the most bizarre repair operation Ryan had ever witnessed. Rilke extracted small, luminescent discs from a hidden compartment in her satchel. Lyrian technology she'd salvaged from their ship. Using Ryan's tools, she carefully integrated these into the shuttle's damaged systems, connecting them with fine filaments that seemed to pulse with living energy. What now? Ryan asked when she'd finished the physical connections. Rilke took a deep breath. Now, I complete the circuit. She placed her hands on two of the discs and closed her eyes. Immediately, her filaments began to glow with an intense blue light, the same color as her blood. The shuttle systems flickered, then came back online one by one. The engines hummed to life, though the sound was different, almost harmonic. It's working! Ryan exclaimed, checking the readouts. We've got power! But his elation faded as he looked at Rilke. Her face was contorted in concentration, beads of luminescent sweat forming on her brow. This was clearly taking a tremendous toll on her barely recovered body. Mom? Sia's voice was thick with worry. I'm all right, Rilke managed through gritted teeth. But I can't maintain this for long. You need to fly. Ryan, now. Ryan jumped into action, plotting the fastest course out of the nebula. The pursuing ship had detected their power signature and was changing course to intercept. Hang on, he urged Rilke. Just a few more minutes. The shuttle responded to his commands with unusual sensitivity, almost as though it was anticipating his intentions. They burst from the nebula's edge, just as the pursuer fired its first warning shot. Entering hyperspace in 3, 2, 1. Ryan activated the jump sequence, praying the jury-rigged system would hold. The stars elongated around them as the shuttle leaped into hyperspace. The pursuing ship fell away behind them, unable to match their sudden acceleration. As soon as they were safely in hyperspace, Rilke collapsed, the glow fading from her filaments. Ryan caught her before she hit the floor, alarmed by how cold her skin felt. Mom! Sia cried, rushing to her side. Ryan carried Rilke to the medbay, hooking her up to the medical monitors. Her vital signs were weak but stable. She had exhausted herself completely, but wasn't in immediate danger. She needs rest, he told Sia, who looked up at him with frightened eyes. She saved us all. Sia nodded, climbing onto the bed to curl up beside her mother. Ryan watched them for a moment, then returned to the cockpit to check their course. The hyperspace jump had been successful, but had drained their reserves. They would need to drop back to normal space soon. As he sat alone in the pilot's seat, staring at the streaking stars, Ryan realized something had fundamentally shifted inside him. These two aliens, whom he'd known for less than a month, had become more important to him than his own survival. The realization was as terrifying as it was unavoidable. When Rilke regained consciousness hours later, Ryan was waiting with a nutrition pack specially formulated for her physiology. We made it, he told her as she slowly sat up. Thanks to you. Rilke accepted the nutrition pack with a weak smile. Not just me. You flew us out. The ship responded differently, Ryan noted, while you were connected to it. Lyrian neural interfaces create a true symbiosis, she explained between sips. The ship becomes an extension of oneself. Ryan nodded thoughtfully. It was impressive. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by Sia's soft breathing as she slept curled at the foot of the bed. Why did you help us, Ryan Cole? Rilke asked finally, her luminous eyes searching his face. The truth this time. Ryan considered the question carefully. At first, it was just the right thing to do. A child needed help. I couldn't walk away. He paused, organizing his thoughts. But now, I think I needed you both as much as you needed me. Needed us. Rilke's filaments quivered with curiosity. I've been alone for 5 years, Ryan admitted. Since I lost my crew, my friends, in a pirate attack. I convinced myself it was better that way. Safer. He gestured around the shuttle. All this, the salvaging, the solitary existence, it wasn't living. It was just not dying. And now? Rilke prompted gently when he fell silent. Ryan met her gaze. Now, I remember what it feels like to care if I make it to tomorrow, because someone else is counting on me. Rilke reached out, her cool fingers brushing against his hand in a gesture that transcended species. Then, perhaps we have all found something we needed. The moment was interrupted by the shuttle dropping out of hyperspace, the sudden deceleration causing the lights to flicker. We've reached the Koravan system, Ryan announced, checking the navigation. One more jump, and we'll be approaching Alara. But as they prepared for the final leg of their journey, fate had one more challenge in store. The long-range scanners detected a Union patrol fleet conducting exercises in the direct path of their intended hyperspace lane. We can't jump, Ryan explained to Rilke, who had insisted on joining him in the cockpit despite her weakness. They'll detect our signature immediately. And going around will take too long, Rilke finished, understanding the dilemma. Our pursuers will catch up. Ryan studied the tactical display, searching for options. There's a research station in this system, privately owned, not Union. If we could dock there, make some repairs and get supplies. Can we trust them? Rilke asked skeptically. No, Ryan admitted. But we're out of options. We need proper parts to fix the engines, or we'll never make it to Alara. The decision made. They approached the research station cautiously. Ryan transmitted an identification code he'd acquired years ago, one that marked him as a freelance salvager with legitimate business. To his relief, the station granted them docking permission without questions. As they maneuvered into the assigned bay, Ryan turned to Rilke. Stay on the shuttle with Sia, he instructed. Keep the doors locked. I'll get what we need and be back as quickly as possible. Rilke nodded, though her expression remained concerned. Be careful. Even private stations have eyes that report to the Union. Ryan secured his payment chip and weapons before disembarking. The station was smaller than he'd expected, its corridors narrow and utilitarian. Few personnel were visible, most of the operations seemingly automated. He located the parts depot and negotiated for the components they needed, paying a premium for discretion and speed. As the attendant processed his order, Ryan overheard a conversation between two technicians nearby. Get increased bounty for Lyrian specimens, one was saying. Thorn Syndicate's offering enough credits to retire on. Thought Lyrians were extinct, the other replied. Mostly. That's why the bounty's so high. Apparently a female and juvenile were spotted in Sector 7 recently. Ryan kept his expression neutral as he collected his purchased parts. But internally, his alarm was growing. News of the hunt had spread faster than he'd anticipated. He was nearly back to the docking bay when an announcement echoed through the station. Attention all personnel. Security Protocol Alpha 7 is now in effect. All vessels are subject to inspection before departure. Repeat. All vessels are subject to inspection before departure. Ryan quickened his pace, keying his communicator. Rilke, we've got trouble. Be ready to depart the moment I'm aboard. No response came. Ryan broke into a run, reaching the docking bay to find two security officers standing outside his shuttle. The docking clamps were still engaged, preventing takeoff. Ryan approached casually, hiding his anxiety behind a practiced smile. "Something wrong, officers?" The taller of the two turned, hand resting on his sidearm. "Routine inspection. New protocols." "Sure, but I'm on a tight schedule," Ryan said easily. "Just picked up some engine parts. Nothing exciting." "Won't take long," the officer insisted. "Just need to scan for unauthorized biologicals." Unauthorized biologicals. The euphemism for non-human species without proper documentation. Ryan's heart sank. They knew, or at least suspected. "My ship's pretty cramped," Ryan stalled. "Barely room for me in there." "All the quicker to scan, then," the second officer said, moving toward the airlock. Ryan's mind raced. A direct confrontation would only confirm their suspicions and bring more security. He needed a distraction. His opportunity came in the form of a maintenance droid, rolling past with a cart of oxygen canisters. Ryan, accidentally, bumped into it, sending the canisters crashing to the floor. One ruptured, its high-pressure contents exploding outward with enough force to throw everyone off balance. In the ensuing chaos, Ryan slipped past the officers and slammed his hand on the shuttle's emergency release. The airlock opened just enough for him to squeeze through, before sealing automatically. "Go, now!" he shouted as he raced for the cockpit. Rilke was already there, hands on the neural interface discs. The engines roared to life as the security officers outside began pounding on the hull. "The docking clamps," Ryan began. "Already disengaged," Rilke cut him off, her filaments glowing with effort. "Sia figured out how to access the station's systems through our interface." Ryan glanced at Sia, who gave him a small, proud smile from her position beside her mother. "Remind me never to underestimate either of you," he muttered, taking the controls. They blasted away from the station, alarms blaring behind them. The station's defense turrets began tracking their movement, but they were already accelerating beyond effective range. "Setting course for the system's edge," Ryan announced. "If we can reach open space before—" The proximity alert cut him off. A vessel was approaching rapidly from behind. A sleek, black ship with predatory lines. Not station security. Something worse. "Thorn Syndicate," Rilke identified grimly. "They must have agents on the station." The pursuing vessel fired a warning shot that blazed past their port side. "They don't want to destroy us," Ryan realized. "They want to capture you intact." "I won't let them take us," Rilke said, her voice hardening with resolve. "I would rather die free." Ryan looked at her, then at Sia, whose large eyes reflected fear, but also determination. In that moment, he made a decision that would alter the course of all their lives. "Nobody's dying today," he promised. "I have an idea." While the pursuing vessel closed the distance, Ryan explained his plan. Risky, desperate, but possibly their only chance. Using the parts he'd acquired on the station, they could overcharge the hyperdrive for a single, dangerously powerful jump. The neural interface would allow precision that would otherwise be impossible. They would aim directly for Alara, bypassing the Union fleet entirely. "The strain on the engines will be catastrophic," Ryan warned. "We'll likely crash land, and the shuttle will be unusable afterward. But we'll be on Alara," Rilke finished, "away from the Syndicate." "If it works," Ryan emphasized. "This kind of jump has maybe a 50% chance of success." "And if it fails?" Sia asked quietly. Ryan met her gaze honestly. "Then we don't make it. But neither do we become specimens in some Union lab." Rilke nodded. "We choose freedom, whatever the cost." She turned to Sia. "Are you with us, little one?" Sia straightened, her filaments glowing faintly with determination. "I am not afraid." They worked quickly, Ryan installing the new parts while Rilke and Sia expanded the neural interface to encompass more of the shuttle systems. The pursuing vessel fired again, this shot grazing their shields and sending tremors through the hull. "No more time," Ryan announced. It's now or never. They took their positions, Ryan at the navigation controls, Rilke connected to the main systems, and Sia, surprisingly, linked to the auxiliary power distribution network. Sia shouldn't be connected, Ryan protested. The feedback could hurt her. I need to help, Sia insisted. 3 points make a stronger circuit than 2. Rilke nodded. She's right. Lyrian children are more resilient than you might think. Another shot rocked the shuttle. Warning lights flashed across every console. Initiating jump in 3, 2, 1. Ryan activated the sequence. The hyperdrive engaged with a sound unlike anything Ryan had ever heard. A harmonic resonance that seemed to vibrate through reality itself. The stars outside stretched impossibly, then vanished into a swirling vortex of energy. The shuttle shuddered violently. System after system overloaded and shut down. Only the neural interface kept them moving. Rilke and Sia's combined consciousness, guiding them through the impossible mathematics of the jump. Ryan held onto the controls, though they responded less to his physical input now than to the Lyrian's mental commands. The shuttle was essentially flying itself, or rather, flying as an extension of Rilke and Sia. The journey that should have taken days compressed into minutes of excruciating tension. Warning klaxons blared continuously as the hull temperature rose to dangerous levels. Ryan watched in helpless awe as Rilke and Sia worked in perfect synchrony, their filaments pulsing with identical rhythms. And then, abruptly, they were through. The vortex collapsed behind them, and normal space reappeared, along with a massive gas giant dominating the view screen, its swirling clouds of amber and gold instantly recognizable. We made it, Ryan breathed. That's Alara's parent planet. But their troubles weren't over. The shuttle was breaking apart around them, the strain of the jump proving too much for its structure. Control systems failed in cascades as they entered the moon's atmosphere, their descent rapidly becoming a freefall. Brace for impact, Ryan shouted, fighting the unresponsive controls. Rilke and Sia disengaged from the neural interface, their filaments dimming as they rushed to secure themselves. Ryan did what he could to angle their descent, aiming for a large body of water he remembered from his previous visit. The shuttle hit the surface with devastating force, skipping once like a stone before plunging beneath the waves. Water rushed in through fractured seams in the hull as emergency systems deployed flotation devices, preventing them from sinking completely. Stunned by the impact, Ryan shook his head to clear it. Everyone all right? Sia coughed, having inhaled some water, but nodded. Rilke was bleeding from a cut on her forehead, the luminescent blue starkly visible against her lavender skin. We need to get out before she sinks, Ryan urged, helping them toward the emergency hatch. They emerged onto the shuttle's upper hull, now partially submerged in what appeared to be a large lake. Around them stretched a landscape of breathtaking beauty, towering forests of iridescent vegetation, mountains with crystalline peaks in the distance, and above it all, the massive gas giant filling half the sky. Alara, Ryan said simply. My hidden paradise. Sia stared in wonder at the alien landscape, her filaments quivering with excitement despite their ordeal. It's beautiful! Rilke seemed equally moved, though more restrained in her expression. You kept this place secret all these years. Ryan nodded. Never told anyone. Never brought anyone here. Until now. He left unsaid. They made their way to shore as the shuttle gradually sank behind them, carrying with it the last connection to their former lives. On the beach, they collapsed in exhaustion, the adrenaline of their escape finally wearing off. What now? Sia asked, looking to the adults for guidance. Ryan surveyed the landscape, mentally cataloging what he knew of the moon's resources. First, we find shelter. I know a cave system not far from here. Then we gather food. The local flora is surprisingly compatible with human biology. Should work for you too, based on what I've seen of your dietary needs. And after that? Rilke pressed. Ryan looked at her, then at Sia. The question went deeper than immediate survival, and he knew it. What happened now that they were safe? Would they stay together, or would he return to his solitary existence somehow? After that, he said carefully, we figure it out together, if that's what you want. Rilke held his gaze, something unspoken passing between them. Together, she agreed softly. Saya, sensing the significance of the moment, took both their hands in hers, forming a physical connection between them. We're a family now, she declared with childlike certainty. Ryan didn't contradict her. The word family stirred long dormant emotions in his chest. Fear. Yes. But also a warmth he'd almost forgotten could exist. As they made their way inland, toward the shelter Ryan remembered, he found himself thinking not of the past they'd escaped, but of the future they might build here, together. The first months on Alara were challenging, but rewarding. They established a home in the cave system Ryan had mentioned, gradually improving it with materials gathered from the surrounding forest. Rilke's engineering knowledge proved invaluable, allowing them to create simple but effective tools and technologies from local resources. Saya thrived in the natural environment, her natural curiosity making her an excellent explorer. She discovered edible plants, freshwater springs, and even befriended some of the smaller native creatures, six-legged, luminescent beings that resembled a cross between squirrels and jellyfish. Ryan found himself smiling more than he had in years. The weight of solitude that had pressed upon him for so long gradually lifted as days filled with shared meals, collaborative work, and Sia's infectious laughter. Rilke remained more reserved, though the hard edges of her personality softened over time. Her warrior's vigilance never completely disappeared. She insisted on maintaining security protocols and early warning systems around their settlement. But she began to allow herself moments of peace. One evening, as they sat outside their dwelling watching the gas giant's rings catch the light of the setting sun, Sia fell asleep between them, exhausted from a day of exploration. She's happier than I've seen her in years, Rilke observed quietly, stroking her daughter's filaments. Perhaps ever, Ryan nodded. Kids are resilient, and she feels safe here. Do you? Rilke asked, turning those luminous eyes toward him. Feel safe? The question caught Ryan off guard. Yes, I do. He realized with some surprise that it was true. Despite the crash landing, despite losing his shuttle and livelihood, despite being stranded on a remote moon with no immediate prospect of departure, he felt safer than he had in years. Because we're hidden, Rilke pressed. Ryan considered this. Partly, but mostly because I'm not alone anymore. Rilke was silent for a long moment, her filaments rippling gently in the evening breeze. I never thanked you properly, she said finally, for saving us, for bringing us here. You don't need to thank me, Ryan replied. You both saved me too, in ways I'm still figuring out. Another comfortable silence fell between them. Ryan found himself acutely aware of her presence beside him, the subtle glow of her filaments in the gathering dusk, the faint, sweet scent that reminded him of night-blooming flowers. What is it like, Rilke asked suddenly, to have a home planet to return to know your people still exist somewhere among the stars? The question pierced Ryan's heart. He'd spent so long avoiding Earth and its colonies that he sometimes forgot what it meant to have that option, to know he wasn't the last of his kind. I haven't been back to Earth in 15 years, he admitted. Never felt like I belonged there. But knowing it exists, I've taken that for granted. Rilke nodded, her gaze turning toward the stars, now appearing in the darkening sky. Lyria is gone. Our colonies were systematically hunted down. Sia may well be the last child of our species. The weight of her words hung in the air between them. Ryan had known, intellectually, what they'd lost, but hearing it stated so plainly made it devastatingly real. "I'm sorry," he said, the words feeling woefully inadequate. "It is why I fought so hard," Rilke continued. "Not just to survive, but to ensure Sia would have a future worth living, a chance to be more than the last of a dying race." Ryan hesitated, then reached out to cover her hand with his. Her skin was cool to the touch, but not unpleasantly so. "She'll have that chance here, I promise." Rilke turned her hand to grasp his, the gesture surprisingly intimate. "We have been running for so long. I'm not sure I remember how to simply live." "We'll figure it out," Ryan assured her. "One day at a time." As the weeks turned to months, their settlement evolved from a mere survival camp into something resembling a home. They constructed a more permanent dwelling using fallen timber and stone, with separate rooms for privacy and large windows to capture the breathtaking views of the landscape. Ryan taught Sia about Earth customs and stories, while Rilke shared what she could remember of Lyrian culture. In the evenings, they would sometimes sit together as Rilke sang the haunting songs of her people, ensuring their memory would live on through her daughter. The incident came during their 6th month on Alara. Ryan was returning from a hunting expedition when he spotted an unnatural glint in the sky, something metallic reflecting the sunlight. His blood ran cold as he realized what it meant: a ship entering the moon's atmosphere. He ran back to their dwelling, shouting warnings. Rilke immediately activated their rudimentary security systems while gathering essential supplies. "How did they find us?" she demanded, her warrior's instincts fully reawakened. "I don't know," Ryan admitted, grabbing his weapons. "Could be coincidence, explorers, surveyors. Or they've been tracking us all along," Rilke finished grimly. "Waiting until we settled somewhere they could capture us easily." Saya emerged from her room, eyes wide with fear. "Are the bad people coming?" "We don't know yet," Ryan told her honestly. "But we need to hide until we find out." They retreated to a concealed cave system they'd prepared for just such an emergency, taking only what they could carry. From their vantage point in the hills, they watched as a sleek vessel landed in the clearing near their home. Ryan observed through makeshift binoculars as figures emerged. 6 of them, heavily armed and moving with military precision. Their uniforms confirmed his worst fears: Thorn Syndicate mercenaries. "They found us," he whispered. Rilke's expression hardened into a mask of determination. "Then we fight?" "Against 6 trained killers? With primitive weapons?" Ryan shook his head. "We need to run. Find somewhere else to hide." "No more running," Rilke declared. "This is our home now. We defend it." The resolution in her voice silenced Ryan's objections. She was right. They couldn't spend their lives fleeing. Sooner or later, they would have to make a stand. "All right," he conceded. "But we do this smart. Set traps. Use the terrain to our advantage." Rilke nodded. "Like the resistance on Lyria. Guerrilla tactics." They left Sia safely hidden in the deepest part of the cave system, with emergency supplies and strict instructions to remain hidden no matter what she heard. What followed was a deadly game of cat and mouse through the forests of Alara. Ryan and Rilke separated, using their intimate knowledge of the terrain to pick off the mercenaries one by one. Rilke's natural abilities proved invaluable. Her capacity to see energy signatures allowed her to detect the mercenaries' positions even through dense vegetation. Ryan's years as a salvager had honed his survival skills and resourcefulness. By nightfall, they had eliminated 4 of the 6 intruders, but the remaining 2, clearly the leaders of the group, had retreated to their ship, using its superior technology to scan for their quarry. "They'll find the cave system eventually," Ryan observed as they regrouped in a hidden ravine. "We need to take out that ship." Rilke was wounded. A glancing shot had burned along her arm, leaving a trail of luminescent blood that she'd hastily bandaged. Despite the injury, her determination hadn't wavered. "I can create a diversion," she offered. Draw them out while you infiltrate the vessel. Ryan shook his head. Too dangerous. We go together or not at all. They formulated a plan using the resources available to them. Rilke could manipulate energy in ways Ryan still didn't fully understand. A Lyrian ability that allowed her to temporarily disrupt electronic systems at close range, if they could get near enough to the ship. Under cover of darkness, they approached the clearing where the vessel waited, its exterior lights illuminating the surrounding area. The two remaining mercenaries were visible through the viewports, one monitoring scanning equipment, while the other maintained communication with someone off-world. Ryan and Rilke crept closer, using the undergrowth as cover. When they were within range, Rilke closed her eyes in concentration, her filaments beginning to glow with that now familiar blue light. The ship's exterior lights flickered, then went out completely. Alarms blared inside as systems failed in sequence. "Now!" Ryan whispered, and they rushed forward. The mercenaries emerged, weapons drawn, just as Ryan and Rilke reached the ship's ramp. What followed was a chaotic firefight, laser bolts illuminating the night in flashes of deadly light. Ryan took a hit to his leg but managed to down one of the mercenaries with a well-placed shot. Rilke engaged the leader directly, her wounded arm a disadvantage in the close combat. Just as it seemed they might prevail, the tide turned. The mercenary leader, a scarred veteran of countless battles, managed to overpower Rilke, throwing her to the ground and leveling his weapon at her head. "Valuable specimen or not, I'll kill you if your human doesn't surrender," he snarled. Ryan froze, his weapon trained on the mercenary, but unable to fire without risking Rilke's life. "Drop it," the mercenary commanded. "Now!" Ryan's mind raced, searching for options, finding none. He slowly lowered his weapon. "That's right," the mercenary smiled coldly. "Now we're going to take a little trip. The Genetic Council pays extra for living specimens, but they don't specify what condition you need to be in." "You won't find the child," Rilke spat defiantly. "She's well hidden." The mercenary laughed. "We have all the time in the world to search this moon, and children leave traces even the most careful adults miss." A new voice cut through the standoff, small but clear. "Leave my mom alone!" All heads turned to see Sia standing at the edge of the clearing, her filaments glowing brightly with emotion. "Sia, run!" Rilke screamed, but it was too late. The mercenary's smile widened. Well, the complete set. What happened next occurred so quickly that Ryan would later struggle to piece it together. Sia, rather than fleeing, raised her small hands in a gesture reminiscent of Rilke's when she manipulated energy. A pulse of intense blue light emanated from the child, washing over the clearing like a silent explosion. The mercenary's weapon shorted out in his hands, sparking violently. Every electronic device in the vicinity, including the ship's systems, surged and failed simultaneously. In the moment of confusion, Ryan lunged forward, tackling the distracted mercenary. They grappled on the ground, rolling toward the ship's ramp. The mercenary's training showed in his vicious counterattacks, but Ryan fought with the desperate strength of someone protecting what he loved. The struggle ended abruptly when they rolled against the ship's hull, precisely where a jagged piece of metal had been exposed by an earlier firefight. The mercenary's momentum carried him onto the improvised spike with a sickening finality. Silence fell over the clearing. Ryan staggered to his feet, limping back to where Rilke was already embracing Sia. "You were supposed to stay hidden," Rilke was saying, her voice a mixture of relief and lingering fear. "I saw everything through the cave opening," Sia explained. "I couldn't let them hurt you." Ryan approached them slowly, still processing what he'd witnessed. What was that? What you did?" Sia looked up at him with those luminous eyes. "I'm not sure. I just wanted them to stop, and I remembered how Mom connects to machines." Rilke stroked her daughter's filaments gently. "Energy manipulation is normal for our kind, but not at this level. Not in one so young." She looked at Ryan meaningfully. This is why they hunt us. This potential. Ryan nodded slowly, understanding at last the true value the Genetic Council saw in them. Not just adaptability, but the power to affect technology in ways humans could not. We need to destroy their ship, he said after a moment. Completely. No trace they were ever here. Rilke agreed. They salvaged what useful technology they could from the vessel, then used its own self-destruct system to obliterate any evidence. The explosion lit up the night sky, visible for miles across Alara's surface. As they made their way back to their cave refuge, Ryan supporting Rilke as she limped beside him. Sia, walking ahead with newfound confidence. A sobering reality settled over them. They'll send more. Rilke voiced what they all knew. When this team doesn't report back. Yes, Ryan agreed. But not right away. It'll take time for them to mount another expedition to such a remote location. We have time to prepare. Prepare how? Rilke asked. We cannot fight an endless war. Ryan considered this as they walked. The ship's communication system. I salvaged it before we destroyed the rest. We might be able to use it to send false information, lead them away from Alara entirely. Rilke's filaments brightened slightly with hope. A permanent solution. Maybe not permanent, Ryan admitted. But it could buy us years instead of months. That night, as they tended each other's wounds in the safety of their cave, Ryan found himself watching Rilke with new eyes. Her bravery, her fierce protectiveness, her unwavering determination, these qualities had always been evident. But now he saw something more. Vulnerability, tenderness, the profound depth of her love for Sia. And for him? He dared not presume. Yet something had shifted between them during the battle. A trust deeper than mere alliance. A connection forged in shared danger and shared purpose. As Sia finally drifted to sleep, exhausted by the day's events and her unprecedented energy manipulation, Rilke joined Ryan at the cave entrance. Together, they gazed at the stars, visible through the canopy of iridescent leaves. Thank you, Rilke said softly. For fighting with us? For us. Ryan turned to her. I wasn't fighting for some noble cause. I was fighting for you. Both of you. The admission came easier than he'd expected. You're my family now. The only one I've had in a very long time. Rilke's filaments glowed gently, illuminating her features in the darkness. Family, she repeated, as though testing the word. Yes, that is what we have become. She reached out, her cool fingers tracing the line of his jaw with unexpected tenderness. On Lyria, there was a belief that souls sometimes find each other across impossible distances, that the universe conspires to bring together those who are meant to heal each other. Is that what we're doing? Ryan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Healing each other. Are we not? Rilke countered. You have given Sia and me a home when we had lost everything. And you smile now. You laugh. The shadows in your eyes are lighter. Ryan couldn't deny it. The perpetual weight of solitude and survival that had defined his existence for so long had indeed lightened in their presence. There is a ritual among my people, Rilke continued, her voice taking on a formal quality. A joining of lives, not unlike your human concept of marriage, though with deeper implications. It creates a bond that transcends physical distance, a true joining of essences. Ryan's heart quickened. Are you proposing to me? Rilke's filaments rippled with what might have been embarrassment. I am suggesting the possibility. For consideration. A smile spread across Ryan's face at her formal phrasing. I'll consider it very carefully, he promised, taking her hand in his. They remained that way for some time, watching the stars in comfortable silence, their fingers intertwined in a simple but profound connection. The following weeks were spent rebuilding and strengthening their home, Using salvage technology from the mercenary ship, they constructed a more sophisticated early warning system and improved their dwelling's defenses. Ryan worked on the communication system, carefully crafting a false trail of transmissions that would lead any pursuing forces to an uninhabited system several sectors away. It was painstaking work, requiring all his knowledge of Union communication protocols and mercenary tracking methods. Rilke focused on helping Sia understand and control her emerging abilities. The child's power was extraordinary but raw. She needed guidance to prevent accidental discharges that could damage their own electronics or reveal their position to distant scanners. Their life settled into a new rhythm, more vigilant than before but still filled with moments of joy and discovery. The threat hanging over them had paradoxically brought them closer, clarifying what truly mattered. It was Sia who finally forced the issue one evening as they sat together after dinner. She had been watching Ryan and Rilke with increasing interest, clearly noting the growing connection between them. "When are you going to marry my mom?" she asked Ryan directly, with the characteristic bluntness of a child. Ryan choked on his drink while Rilke's filaments rippled in what he now recognized as embarrassment. "Sia," Rilke admonished gently, "such matters are private." "But you both want to," Sia insisted. "I can see it. Your energy patterns change when you look at each other." Ryan recovered his composure, exchanging a glance with Rilke. "Your mom and I have discussed it," he said carefully. "But there are complications." "Like what?" Sia pressed. "Like different species, different customs," Ryan began. "Like the constant threat of mercenaries hunting us," Rilke added pragmatically. Sia considered this, her head tilted thoughtfully. "But if we're going to be in danger anyway, shouldn't we be happy while we can? Isn't that what you always taught me, Mom? To live fully in the moments we have?" Rilke's expression softened at her daughter's wisdom. "I did teach you that, didn't I?" A silence fell over the room as the adults contemplated the child's simple but profound logic. "Please marry my mom, human," Sia said finally, her large eyes earnest. "She's all I have left. And I think she loves you." The naked vulnerability in the request stripped away all pretense. This wasn't just about Ryan and Rilke anymore. It was about Sia, about giving her the stability and family she so desperately needed in a universe that had taken almost everything from her. Ryan looked at Rilke, really looked at her, the being who had fought alongside him, saved his life, shared her culture and her trust with him, the being whose presence had somehow filled a void in his soul he'd stopped acknowledging years ago. "I would be honored," he said quietly. "If your mother would have me." All eyes turned to Rilke, whose filaments were now glowing with an intensity Ryan had never seen before, not from combat or energy manipulation, but from emotion. "Our lives will never be simple," she warned, though her tone belied the caution in her words. "Simple is overrated," Ryan replied with a smile. "Then yes," Rilke said, her voice steady despite the luminescence now spreading from her filaments to suffuse her features. "I will join with you, Ryan Cole." Sia's whoop of delight broke the solemnity of the moment, her small form launching between them in an enthusiastic embrace that nearly toppled them all. The ceremony took place 2 weeks later, under the canopy of iridescent trees near their home. They combined elements of both their cultures, a Lyrian energy-binding ritual and simplified versions of human wedding vows. Sia served as both witness and celebrant, her joy infectious as she guided them through the promises they crafted together. Ryan wore a ceremonial vest made from local materials, adorned with small crystals that refracted light in patterns reminiscent of Lyrian filaments. Rilke wore flowers in her filaments, the blossoms responding to her energy by glowing softly in the dusk. As they spoke their commitments to one another, thousands of tiny luminescent creatures, the ones Sia had befriended, emerged from the forest to surround them, creating a living tapestry of light that reminded Ryan of old Earth tales about fireflies at summer weddings. "I bind my energy to yours," Rilke promised, placing her hands against Ryan's chest in the Lyrian tradition. "Through darkness and light, through peace and strife, our essences joined beyond physical form. I give you my heart and my future," Ryan responded, his own hands covering hers. "Whatever comes, we face it together, not as two separate beings, but as one family, one purpose, one love." When they kissed, a human custom Rilke had come to appreciate, the gathered luminescent creatures pulsed in synchrony, creating waves of light that cascaded through the forest in expanding rings. Sia clapped her hands in delight, her own filaments glowing with happiness as she watched her mother and Ryan complete their union. That night, as they celebrated with a feast of local delicacies Sia had helped prepare, Ryan looked at his new family and felt a sense of completion he'd never known was possible. Whatever dangers still lurked among the stars, they would face them together. "I think they would have approved," Rilke said softly, noting his contemplative expression. "Who?" Ryan asked. "Your crew," she replied. "The friends you lost. I think they would be happy to see you found a family again." Ryan's throat tightened with emotion. She was right. Of course. His former crew, the closest thing to family he'd had before, would have wanted this for him. Not endless solitude, but connection, love, purpose. "Thank you," he whispered, squeezing her hand. Their peaceful existence lasted nearly a year. They expanded their dwelling, created a garden of both earth and Lyrian plants from seeds Ryan had carried in his emergency supplies, and established a more permanent security system using the salvage technology. Sia's abilities continued to develop under Rilke's guidance. The child could now interface with technology in ways that surpassed even adult Lyrians, according to Rilke's astonished observations. She seemed to instinctively understand electronic systems, communicating with them almost as if they were living entities. It was this extraordinary ability that first alerted them to the new threat. One morning, Sia froze while helping Ryan repair their water filtration system, her filaments suddenly rigid. "Something's wrong," she whispered. "Something's coming." Ryan immediately checked their early warning system, but the displays showed nothing. "Are you sure, Sia? The perimeter sensors don't detect anything." "It's higher," Sia insisted, pointing upward. "In orbit, something big." Rilke joined them, her expression grave as she observed her daughter's reaction. "Sia's connection to energy fields extends far beyond our instruments. If she senses something, it's real." They gathered their emergency supplies, a drill they had practiced monthly since the mercenary attack, and retreated to their fortified cave system. From there, Ryan used a powerful telescope salvaged from the mercenary ship to scan the sky. At first, he saw nothing. Then, as Alara rotated, a glint of metal appeared against the blackness of space, a vessel in high orbit, much larger than the mercenary ship had been. "Union research vessel," Ryan identified grimly. "Genetic Council markings." Rilke's face hardened. "Not mercenaries this time. The Council itself." "They must have traced the mercenaries' last transmissions," Ryan theorized. "Or—" He hesitated, glancing at Sia. "Or what?" Rilke prompted. "Or they detected Sia's energy manipulation during the battle." He finished reluctantly. "If her power is as unique as you say, it might have a signature they can track." Rilke absorbed this with visible distress. "Then nowhere is truly safe. Not as long as she uses her abilities." Sia looked between them, her large eyes filled with guilt. "Is this my fault? Should I stop using my powers?" Ryan knelt beside her. "No, sweetheart. Your abilities are part of who you are. We just need to be more careful." Over the next days, they observed multiple shuttlecraft descending from the orbiting vessel, establishing a research base in a valley several miles from their settlement. The operation was clearly more sophisticated than the previous mercenary hunt. Methodical, well-equipped, designed for a long-term presence. "They're settling in," Ryan observed through the telescope. "Planning to stay until they find what they're looking for." "Us," Rilke said simply. They held a council of war that night, weighing their options. They could run, abandon their home, and seek a new hiding place elsewhere on Alara's vast surface. They could fight, though the odds against a fully equipped Union research team were far worse than against a small mercenary band. Or they could try to mislead them, as they had done with the false transmission trail. "There's something else we should consider," Ryan said hesitantly. "Something I've been working on." He revealed that he had been secretly restoring a small escape pod from the mercenary vessel, a project he'd undertaken as a precaution after the attack. "It's not large enough for extended travel," he explained, "but it could reach the nearest neutral outpost. From there, you and Sia could find passage to one of the free colonies beyond Union jurisdiction." Rilke's filaments stiffened. "You said you and Sia, not we." Ryan met her gaze steadily. "The pod can only safely carry two, and someone needs to stay behind to launch it and cover your escape." "No," Rilke said flatly. "We stay together. That was our promise." "Mom," Sia interjected quietly. "I can sense their search patterns. They're using advanced technology to scan for Lyrian biosignatures. They'll find us eventually, no matter where on Alara we hide." The gravity of their situation settled over them like a physical weight. Their paradise had become a trap. "There must be another way," Rilke insisted. Ryan's mind raced, considering and discarding options. Then, an idea formed, desperate, dangerous, but possibly their only chance. "What if we don't run from them?" he suggested. "What if we go to them instead?" "Surrender?" Rilke recoiled at the thought. "No," Ryan shook his head. "Infiltrate. The research vessel. If we can get aboard, we might be able to erase their data on Lyrians entirely. Make them think the species is truly extinct." It was an audacious plan, bordering on suicidal. But, as they discussed the details, a viable strategy emerged, using the escape pod. Ryan could approach the Union vessel under the guise of a salvager with information to sell, a common enough occurrence in the outer systems. Once aboard, he would create a distraction while Rilke, with her ability to interface with technology, accessed their central database. Sia, however, presented a problem. She was too young to participate in such a dangerous mission, but leaving her behind was unthinkable. "I can hide her energy signature," Rilke said suddenly. "A Lyrian protection technique. It would make her appear human to their scanners." "For how long?" Ryan asked. "Long enough," Rilke promised. "If we move quickly." They spent the next week in intensive preparation. Ryan modified the escape pod to mask its origins, creating a convincing salvager vessel. Rilke worked with Sia on suppressing her energy signature, a painful process that left the child exhausted but determined. The plan was set in motion on a clear morning, with the research vessel clearly visible in Alara's sky. Ryan would approach first, establish contact, and secure access to the vessel. Rilke and Sia would follow in a second pod, one they had concealed as a component of Ryan's salvager ship. "Remember," Ryan told them in their final briefing, "if anything goes wrong, the priority is to get Sia to safety. The rendezvous point is the Freelancer's Haven in the Corvin system. I'll find you there." Rilke held his gaze, her filaments glowing with a mixture of love and determination. "We will see this through together." Their farewell was brief, but intense. No one willing to acknowledge it might be their last. Sia hugged Ryan fiercely, her small form trembling. "Be careful, Dad," she whispered, using the human term of endearment for the first time. The word caught Ryan by surprise, a wave of emotion threatening to overwhelm him. "I will, sweetheart. See you soon." The approach to the Union vessel went exactly as planned. Ryan's credentials as a salvager, carefully forged using technology from the mercenary ship, passed inspection. His story of discovering unusual energy signatures on Alara's surface piqued the interest of the research team's leader, a cold-eyed woman he knew only as Director Kell. "And why bring this information to us?" she questioned, as they stood in her austere office aboard the research vessel. "Credits," Ryan shrugged, projecting the casual greed of a typical salvager. "Word is, the Union pays well for certain biological discoveries. Thought whatever's making those energy spikes might qualify." Director Kell studied him with calculating eyes. "Indeed we do. Show me your findings." Ryan presented doctored sensor readings that pointed to an area of Alara far from their actual settlement. As the director examined them, he surreptitiously studied the ship's layout, noting security protocols and access points. "Interesting," Kell murmured. "This matches certain patterns we've been tracking. You'll be compensated for this information." Salvager Cole. "Happy to help," Ryan replied easily. "Mind if I resupply while I'm here? Been in deep space a while." The permission granted. Ryan was free to move about certain sections of the vessel, enough to identify the optimal entry point for Rilke and Sia, who would be approaching in their concealed pod. The plan proceeded smoothly until the moment of their boarding. Rilke and Sia successfully docked their small craft in a maintenance bay, using the access codes Ryan had obtained. They were making their way through a service corridor when a security alert blared throughout the ship. "Unauthorized biosignatures detected in Section 7, announced a mechanical voice. "Security teams respond." Ryan, waiting at their planned meeting point, felt his blood run cold. Something had gone wrong. Sia's suppressed energy signature must have flared, or their forged credentials had been discovered. He had to act fast. Abandoning stealth, he made his way toward Section 7, drawing his concealed weapon. The ship's layout was labyrinthine, designed to compartmentalize in case of emergencies, or to trap intruders. He rounded a corner and nearly collided with Rilke, who was running with Sia in her arms. The child appeared unconscious, her filaments dim. "What happened?" Ryan demanded, already turning to lead them toward an escape route. "Her suppression failed," Rilke explained breathlessly. "The strain was too much. She's just exhausted, but their sensors detected her signature immediately. Security forces would be closing in from all directions. Their original plan was compromised, but Ryan had prepared for contingencies." "This way," he directed, leading them toward a secondary maintenance bay, where emergency evacuation pods were stored. They had almost reached it when a security team appeared ahead, weapons raised. "Stop where you are," the lead officer commanded. Ryan pushed Rilke and Sia behind him, raising his hands in apparent surrender while positioning himself to shield them. "There's been a misunderstanding," he began, stalling for time. The distraction worked. Rilke, still holding Sia, pressed her free hand against a nearby control panel. Her filaments glowed intensely as she interfaced with the ship's systems, triggering an emergency bulkhead closure that separated them from the security team. "That won't hold them long," she warned, as they continued toward the evacuation bay. They reached the bay to find it already occupied. Director Kell stood waiting, flanked by two security officers with weapons trained on the entrances. "Fascinating," the director said coldly as they entered. "A Lyrian adult and child, when all records indicate the species is extinct, and a human trader helping them." Her gaze fixed on Sia's unconscious form. "The child's energy signature is extraordinary, unlike anything in our database." "She's a child, not a laboratory specimen," Ryan growled, calculating their odds against 3 armed opponents. "She is the future of human genetic enhancement," Kell corrected. "Her genetic structure will revolutionize our understanding of energy manipulation at the cellular level." Rilke's filaments flared with protective rage. "You will not touch my daughter." What happened next occurred with shocking speed. Sia, apparently not as unconscious as she had seemed, suddenly opened her eyes now glowing with an intensity that illuminated the entire bay. A wave of energy pulsed from her small body, more powerful than anything they had witnessed before. Every electronic system in the vicinity failed simultaneously. The lights extinguished. Emergency sirens fell silent, and even the officers' energy weapons sparked uselessly in their hands. In the momentary darkness and confusion, Ryan acted. He tackled one officer, while Rilke engaged the other, her Lyrian combat training evident in her precise movements. Director Kell attempted to flee, but Rilke intercepted her, pinning the woman against a wall with surprising strength. "You should know," Rilke said, her voice deadly calm, "that Lyrians were peaceful researchers before your kind made us warriors." With the immediate threat neutralized, they secured the evacuation pod, a small craft designed for emergency departures from the research vessel. As Ryan prepared for launch, Rilke interfaced with the ship's main computer terminal, her filaments glowing intensely. "What are you doing?" Ryan asked, aware that every second increased their risk of capture. "Erasing us," Rilke replied, her concentration evident in her strained voice. "Deleting all records of Lyrian genetic structure from their database. Without the template, they won't know what to look for." It was the original objective of their mission, one Ryan had thought abandoned in their escape. Yet Rilke, ever the strategist, had seized the opportunity. The pod launched moments before reinforcements reached the bay, blasting away from the research vessel into the blackness of space. Behind them, the massive ship seemed to shudder, its systems resetting after the unprecedented energy surge caused by Sia. "Will it work?" Ryan asked as they put distance between themselves and the vessel. "The data erasure?" Rilke nodded, cradling Sia, who had collapsed again after her extraordinary exertion. "I corrupted their entire xenobiology database. It will take them years to reconstruct what they've lost, and without living specimens." The implication was clear. For the first time since they'd met, they might truly be free from pursuit. The small pod was not designed for long-distance travel, but Ryan had programmed coordinates for a neutral trading outpost on the edge of the system. From there, they could secure passage to the Freelancer's haven as planned. As Alara receded behind them, visible through the pod's small viewport, Rilke placed her hand on Ryan's arm. "We will find another home," she promised. Ryan covered her hand with his. "We already have one," he said simply. "Wherever we are together." Sia stirred in Rilke's lap, her filaments beginning to regain their glow. "Did we win?" she asked weakly. Ryan smiled at his daughter, for that was truly what she had become. "Yes, sweetheart. Thanks to you, we won." 3 months later, they stood on the observation deck of a transport vessel bound for the outer colonies. Behind them lay the Union territories and the Thorn Syndicate's reach. Ahead, the unclaimed regions where corporate and governmental influence faded into the true frontier. Their destination was a small agricultural world called Nova Terra, a colony established by dissidents and refugees from various conflicts. Its population was diverse, its governance independent, and most importantly, its policy on non-human species was one of complete equality. "Will they have other children there?" Sia asked, her face pressed against the viewport as she watched the stars streak by. "All kinds," Ryan assured her. "Human, non-human, and everything in between. And we'll be safe." Her question held the wariness of a child who had known too much danger in her young life. Rilke stroked her daughter's filaments gently. "As safe as anyone can be in this universe, and we'll be together." That, in the end, was what mattered most. The family they had formed against all odds, a human salvager who had lost everything, a Lyrian warrior protecting the last of her kind, and a child whose extraordinary abilities were matched only by her capacity for hope. As the transport vessel carried them toward their new beginning, Ryan reflected on the strange path that had led him here. A routine salvage mission that had become a rescue. A rescue that had become a family. A family that had become his reason for living. Beside him, Rilke's filaments glowed softly in the dimmed lighting of the observation deck, their blue luminescence now as familiar and comforting to him as sunrise on Earth had once been. Sia, growing stronger each day, practiced small energy manipulations under her mother's watchful guidance, her control improving steadily. Whatever challenges awaited them on Nova Terra, they would face them together, not as refugees or survivors, but as a family forged in adversity and bound by something stronger than genetics or species or the vast distances between stars. "I love you both," Ryan said quietly, the words still new enough to feel profound each time he spoke them. Rilke's filaments brightened, her expression softening in the way he had come to recognize as her smile. "And we love you, human," she replied, the term now an endearment rather than a designation. Sia, ever the bridge between their worlds, took each of their hands in hers, forming the physical connection that mirrored their deeper bond. "Family," she declared, with the simple certainty of a child who had found her place in the universe. And as they stood together, watching the stars speed past, Ryan knew that of all the treasures he had salvaged in his years of wandering the outer reaches, none compared to this. A love that transcended worlds, a family chosen rather than born, and a future filled with possibilities as endless as the stars themselves.